Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Just recently, Cooler Master came to me with some RGB fans and said, do you fancy a look? And I was like, yeah, why not? And then when I got to thinking about it, I could just strap one to a heatsink, which is what they were originally saying to me. You can have one. You could just strap one to a heatsink, show the colours and stuff, and you know how the wiring and stuff is. And you can get a little control box as well, so that if you haven't got an Aura board like this, or you haven't got RGB on your board, you can still use it. So anyway, I could have done it the easy way and done that. But because I've got issues and I hadn't done anything like this for a while, and I could kind of chuck a few things in together, I built an entire system around it. So like the name suggests, our RGB Ryzen gaming build, whether that means RGB and then abbreviated to Ryzen game, I don't know. But anyway, I have 3 of these little puppies, but they do come in different models. So you've got air balance, air performance, and then you've got air pressure. So you've got a few different ones. They do them in 120 and 140. End of discussion. The main reason why we're here is getting everything synced up together. Now, I am quite well known for, with the regulars, for liking white lights. So this was quite a challenge for me. So first things first, Mastercase 5. It has got a panel which goes across the front, which you'll see in a bit, but I've taken it off just so that we can see the lights better. And the reason why I used this model was, this is the Master Maker as well. The reason why I use this model is we've got a fan controller that is built into the front, and it's just a nice slicker one. I wish they'd used the standard Mastercase 5 sized front on this, but left the fan controller in. But anyway, deviating from the subject at hand, tempered glass side panel. These side panels fit so well as well, because you can literally carry them around. You can lock it, but anyway, taking our tinted glass side panel off, I had to poke it to Cooler Master, because I had said on numerous occasions, pretty much every time I had ever reviewed this chassis, because the internals are very, very similar, I had said that there's normally a big cutout section here, and I had said it's for a radiator essentially. I had said that they should have had something that went in there to cover it, even if it did just cover the front. So this took me 15 minutes. It's plastic basically. It's something called Plasticard. You can get it off of eBay. If you wanted to make one for the bottom of this case, and you've got one of these cases, an A3 sheet is fine. You can cut it with a pair of scissors, just mark it out. Now what I did is I made the cover for this, and then I also made a cover that goes right the way up the back. Again, same stuff, Plasticard, just cut it. It's double-sided tape stuck in, really not hard, but it cleans all the lines up, because where this is, there should be a cutout that you can see through to the back panel, and the wires for the fans come across here. It's just not pretty, so I tidied it all up. And the other thing was, down in the bottom, I did the same thing. Now, I didn't want to cover up the Master Watt logo here, and I've put another RGB down the bottom, but I had this, and you could see all the cables on the other side, and you can have a hard drive cage down on the bottom. So I literally just made another one just to go in the bottom. So in total, I spent £10 on Plasticard, and I cleaned all of the lines up. So that's just to give you a rough idea of what's going on with the case. I know people would end up asking, so we'll cover those bits first. Fans themselves. Now, I've only got 3, and I probably should have thought about it and kept one out so that I could actually show you the fans separately. But they've got rubber grommets on the side, or actually the ends are completely covered in rubber. These are the 120mm air balance ones, but like I said, there are other ones that you can get. And essentially you've got, that is the fan, and then at the other end you've got an RGB connection and a PWM 4-pin fan connection. So at the end of the fans you do get this, and I have to pull all the ends out. And it's basically a standard RGB 4-pin connector, which you can connect into any motherboard really, or anything with an RGB out. Most motherboards you can adapt the colours now, because each one of the pins stands for 12 volt, and then you have RGB, and the RGB can be any way around. So a lot of motherboards now do allow you to basically set them up. I'm trying to put this back in at the same time as talking to you. You can set them up and configure the cables. Now, so that's what's on the end. Now, the only problem with the fans is with the wires. You literally have the 4-pin, which is like that, and the RGBs are the same length. Now, I would say that the RGB ones probably should have been a bit shorter, but anyway. Now, the problem you will have in a rig, maybe like this, doesn't really matter, is there's not necessarily that many RGB connectors on board. So what you can do from Cooler Master is they've brought out a cable, and it basically, you have one RGB in and then 3 RGBs out. But this is 60 centimeters long, and it is quite long and it can be quite messy. It's good, it's easy to get hold of. But the one that I've used is probably the one I would suggest you use as well, despite the fact that they're not going to like me saying it. It's incredibly short. That literally, you've got the 3 there and it goes up and over onto the board, and it's about 20 centimeters long, and I got that from Amazon for about £5. So you can get this one if you want, if you need the extra length, but I would say 60 centimeters is too long. So you've got the Amazon option there. If you've got a white motherboard, you can get the white ones as well. The black one does require a bit of digging, but you can find it if you can be bothered to use your keyboard and your mouse. So that's another bit of a hint for you. So they do have the cable if you just want to grab one. Like I said, it is easier, but I thought that it was a bit too long, especially where the fan lengths are, the fan cables and the RGB connectors are equal lengths. The other thing I would say is that if you're going to be putting a few of them in, a lot of people are going to be saying, how do I connect them all up? Now, I have used this connector on the back of the case, but this is only 3-pin. If you use PWM, then if you're using PWM, then the fans will stay the same brightness all the time. If you use this control on the back of the case is only 3 pins, so DC. So when you turn the fans down, the LEDs dim as well. PWM, it doesn't matter. But the reason why I'm saying that is if you really want to, you can use Pwm Splitter. This is just a Pwm Splitter at the top, and it's 2 fans. This is the roof fans that aren't RGB, and it's literally 2 fans wired in with a Pwm Splitter to 1 on the motherboard. You can pick those up easily enough. I wouldn't even worry about connecting 3 fans onto a single CPU header, but if you're going to put any more than that on, a lot of motherboards have a high amp fan header if you want to use the 1 to 6, for example, or 1 to 4. Or you can just split them out and control them with the software if you're going to be using that. So there's loads of little ways around it that you can do. They do also have this, which I haven't opened, but it's because I'm using Aura software. But essentially, it's a controller box that you can use for those of you that haven't got RGB. Oh, it's falling on the floor. Those of you that haven't got RGB on your board, you can use this so that you can control the LEDs, and you can connect RGB strips to this as well as the fans. There are a load of cables and stuff inside. I'm really not going to beat around it, but there's it connects to your board via USB, and there's a bit of software that you can use, and you can make them do literally crazy stuff. So this is good if you're going for something bonkers or don't have RGB on your board. They've opened it all up. Look, they've even got little mounts on the back so you can screw into them. Anyway, so there's this that you can get if you want to really push the boundaries of what you can do with the fans rather than the plain stuff, which is really what I'm going to be showing you today. So I did say Mastercase 5, Bosch, yes. Linchpin for our gaming rig though is the Crosshair 6 Hero. So AM4, it's the new board. Obviously Ryzen, really hot topic at the moment. Loads of people looking for inspiration of stuff that they can do with Ryzen. So we use that as our starting. Now the thing is once you kind of get to the Crosshair stuff and you've got the Aura ability, there's loads of stuff that you can do with it. You can add in, they've got a connector at the bottom and at the top of the board to put RGBs on. What I've got is the top of the board RGB. I have the fans connected to with the splitter that I talked to you about before, and then the bottom RGB connector I have down here, and I'm just using a single Cable Mods RGB strip. Now, when we do talk about RGB, there's obviously a lot of talk about graphics cards. Now, thankfully, the RX 580 top, which I'm using at the moment, you have got an RGB connector, sorry, have an RGB light around the back. And you're not going to be able to see it on my hands very well, but around the back of the card, it does have an RGB. And it lights up the Asus logo, all nice. But let's face it, it's kind of a bit meh now. And we've been saying for such a long time that putting all these lovely lights onto the bottom of the card where the fans are is like, you know, why are we hiding it? Now, I know loads of you are like, so have you connected that up? Well, this is another thing, and this is the reason why I've done loads of things all at once. It's because the Mastercase 5 doesn't have any of those little dividers at the back. Now, I'm not on about the actual PCI covers or the expansion slot covers that you screw in. I'm actually on about when you've taken those out, some cases have the little dividers that go through. Now, what Cooler Master have done is they've made this bolt-in bracket, and it literally bolts in, fills up all 7 slots. It supports your graphics card like this, and then it's got a ribbon cable which you connect your graphics card into at the bottom, and then there's a ribbon cable at the back that you then plug into your where you would have put your graphics card in the first place. Now, the problem with this, and there is a problem with this, it means that you can only really get away with having one thing connected on the entire board. So only one graphics card. You couldn't put a sound card in or anything like that without causing yourself problems, because there's about 2 inches between the back of the graphics card and the board. There's a couple of millimeters between the graphics card here now and this tall G.Skill Trident Z RGB memory, which I will cover in a moment. But anyway, so this bracket I think is brilliant, because even if you don't have a Cooler Master case, all you need to do is get your Dremel out, cut those little dividers at the back, and then bosh, you can screw it in. The riser cards, or the ribbon cable, what I will say, is just a warning to everyone in case you're going to try and do this at home. Maybe not with the Cooler Master bracket, but you may try and do it yourself with a bit of modding, because you can, you know, bodge them in at the top here like I've done in the past. Ribbon cables are very sensitive. You need to remember that there is wires in that, and if you go folding them too much or abusing them too much, you can get problems. And if you start getting, you'll get a PCI poster on your board, or a lot of them have them, and sometimes the GPU thing will flag up. If you've got a riser cable, sometimes that means it's time to replace your riser. Now, I say that because I have had issues with the one that I did on my racing rig. I went through 2 or 3 because I just didn't know, and it was my own fault. Thankfully, once I got to this Cooler Master one, I've known to be careful, but it's just something that I do want to stress to you guys. But I do think they've made it ridiculously easy. It does make me wonder now why we have this big section at the back of cases here, if we're going to start seeing separate mounts for these, you know, going forward, and whether it's going to be more of a regular thing. But it doesn't really matter, because I think it's epic in this. I absolutely love it, to the point of I've asked Cooler Master for a couple more because I'd like to use them with other things. Like I said, I think especially with this theme where we're going with all black, and I'll turn the lights down a bit, so we're going with all black and then we're just illuminating with the fans and the RGB. I think it looks the absolute gonads. Obviously the fans aren't spinning at the moment, but they will do if we went into a game or started stressing it. So obviously the hoses aren't like this normally. I'm holding them out the way, but so that we can see the Trident Z logo on the side there. If I push it back down, sometimes it's in the way, sometimes it's not. But anyway, so I've got 2 sticks of Trident Z RGB in there. Now, one thing I will say, as far as Ryzen has been lately, the G.Skill stuff has from the start been very, very good with most of the boards. But obviously, you know, BIOSes are now starting to catch up, and the other memories now starting to fall into place, where you're getting much more stability, and you are actually being able to get those 3200 megahertz running speeds with a lot more other brands. But thankfully, G.Skill have, as far as I'm concerned, the best implementation of Aura for memory sticks available, you know, out there at all, period. So if you're going to build an RGB rig, as of today, with the filming that I'm doing today, The G-Still stuff is without a question the best. It looks the best. It links in with all the software. So we're using Asus. So this is actually being controlled with the Asus software. Although there is some standalone G-Skill software if you want to use that. But it does work with MSI and Gigabyte as well. So it doesn't matter what you use it with, whether it's, you know, an unsupported board that hasn't got RGB, a board with RGB, and it doesn't matter the brand, this stuff works. Now, just to let you know, this is 3600 megahertz. I've put it in, enabled XMP, and the motherboard has just gone, oh, okay, we're not allowed to go above 3200 megahertz without base clock overclocking, and it's set it up as 3200 megahertz, and it's run. Literally, click, bosh, out. Yes, I did have to go into the BIOS to do it, but if you didn't know, memory does need to be told to run at rated. You can check in CPU-Z. Whatever CPU-Z says, you've got a little thing at the top for your memory. Click that, and it might say, for argument's sake, 1333 megahertz, but you need to double that. So then that would then mean 2666. So as I'm running 3200 megahertz, mine says 1600. But anyway, so G-Skill RGB, absolutely, without a doubt, the best RGB implementation on memory at the time of filming. I absolutely love this stuff. So the Asus software is actually pretty good. You can go across the top and it shows you all the stuff that you're running. So we've got DRAM, we've got mouse, keyboard, VGA, and the motherboard. Obviously you've got the motherboard, but anyway. And if we went into static, you actually get all of the options to change all the colors individually as well. So you can change the DRAM stuff separately, you can change the mouse. It's all pretty self-explanatory with that. And then when you do some of the more animated ones, you can actually change the sequence as well. And the only thing that I would say, and this is one for Asus to pick up on, you have the you've got the main board at the top, but they don't name the RGB headers independently, and I think they should. I think we should have main board as in with the main board. You've got this at the back, and then you've got the chipset heatsink, which I've hidden, but you've got that, and I think they should have main board as one, and then I think they should have RGB header 1, RGB header 2, because as with mine, what I've done is I have the RGB at the bottom, but this is lighting up at the same time as the motherboard. So if they'd had it independently, then what I would have been doing is, if it was working its way down, I would have had this one on last. Now that's a very minor gripe, but it was just something that I picked up with mine that I thought could make it better. And let's face it, the manufacturers all hate me. I'm sorry for keep moving the camera, my tripod's not good for adjusting. It was my mum's old one. So it would have been better for you to have really been able to have animated the system. But you're like, animate the system, Tom, what are you on about? Well, thankfully now we've got red, green and blue, easy choices. Now all you do have to do, and it's another thing that's quite annoying, is every time you make a change, you do need to remember, if you want them all to do it, is to go and click to go to all. And then if I was to go, when I click it, they're going to change. So let's get ourselves into a position where we can see. Okay, so here we go, click. Now this is Comet green, and as you can see, the motherboard's lighting up at the same time, but it's dancing around all over the place, which is kind of cool. And like I said, you can change the sequence as well. Now with flash and dash, I'm going to change this one to red, just so that you can see the flash and dash. Now this is quite cool because it runs them all in a dimmed mode, and then it highlights certain parts. So for argument's sake, if we were to scan down to the keyboard right now, when it gets to the keyboard bit, you can see that they're always on, but they flash. It's actually quite cool with the mouse as well. Now the mouse is the new ROG Gladius 2. You can see that we've got a strip around the bottom. It's almost like the undercar lighting that you used to have back in the day with the CCFL lights on the cars. But anyway, it does flash, but we can, if I wanted to, we could change this over, and you can change the colours to whatever you want, obviously, which does make things kind of cool. The only colour that you can't do with this flash and dash, annoyingly, is white. Now this is rainbow, And again, you can set the sequence on this so that it changes at different times, because you can see that there are slightly different colours and it's meant to kind of work its way across. So we're getting the colour change up here first, then it works its way across, and you can change that so you could have the motherboard doing it last, you know, whatever you wanted. And then the other thing that you can do if you like to have things a bit different, so the great bit about being able to change everything independently is you can quite literally change all the different parts like I've just done here. And then let's do the VGA, and we'll do that one, that colour. So you can set it all up independently and then have it doing whatever you want. And then, you know, with that side of things, I think that is very cool, because okay, what I'm doing at the moment looks a bit mental. I'm just setting up another one before you wonder what all the clicking is in the background, but I know it looks a bit mental. But if you were let me just change this now and see how far we've got. Okay, so we've got that one green, and then I'll do that one white. I am clicking as quickly as I can, because the memory modules you can actually set up independently. So I've got here now, although it's bleeding a bit on the camera, I've got green on one side and white on the other. But then what I could do if I wanted to was go in, and we will do that one on red. You can see now I faded the tops to red, so you can manually set all the colours that you could possibly want. And then I've obviously got the RGB at the bottom, and I want to show off my my power supply. So if I go to that, I think it's RGB strip 2. Oh no, that's the fans. Okay, we'll do both of them white then. Okay, so we've now got white at the bottom with that one. My fans are now white as well. I know which one's which now, so I can change the fans back to red. Oh no, didn't do a very good red there, did you, Thomas? Okay, so you can have a mental chicken oriental rainbow rig if you want, but you can see that there's an awful lot of customizing that you can do. The fans all link in with that, and you can go even more bat poop crazy with the fact that you've got your mouse, your keyboard, and now even the microphone as well, the Magnus microphone, which you can go and have a read and look at the review on the OC3D website. But anyway, absolutely mental amount of customization that you can do. Okay then peeps, so I've given you a fairly good skim round on all the ideas with this and how you can link it all in together. Hope you can appreciate why I chose this case now as well. As yes, alright, there were Cooler Master fans, but it did mean that I could actually do a little bit of modding. Now I know it's only a bit of plastic, but the point is, and I'm not a professional modder, but I did that with a pair of scissors and some plastic card from eBay. There's no reason why you guys can't start doing stuff like this either. It was a really quick and easy fix. I think it took me probably half an hour to do the whole thing in the case, which I know it's only 3 pieces, but the bottom one's folded round and had to be cut and stuck in place. And it was a really simple thing. But also what that then did mean is I had all these lovely satin black surfaces, which if you've got a different type of case, just to let you know, the plastic card's normally satin or matte on one side and gloss on the other side. So if I was to rip this out now, and that's literally how easy it is to get it out as well. So it's satin on that side, and then you can see the double-sided tape on the other side, and it's gloss. And then it's literally that easy to pop it back in, and that's that now fitted again. So, and with these ones, they can literally be pulled out. So if you were to get rid of the case or you wanted to make a change, maybe you wanted to put a white floor in it or something, you can do all of that. So there's some ideas for you at home. fans. They link in with all the Aura software perfectly. You don't need to do any setup for them. The pinout on the fans is exactly the same as the pinout on the Asus motherboard. Although if you did use them on other brands, all of the brands now, you can configure the way your RGB is, and all they do, it's quite simple. They turn the red channel on, and if it lights up green, you know it's not right. So you tell them that that's the, do you know what I mean? That's now lighting up red, and the motherboards are able to configure which one is which is great, and it means that it works across the board. So the fans, the only thing that I didn't like was the fact that the RGB cable and the fan header cable were the same length. I think that was a bit of a mistake. I think one should have probably been at the fan length. Also, the cable that they did, which is their splitter cable, I would say by the time that you've got a full-length fan cable and then another full-length RGB cable, you're going to end up with a lot of loops in the back of your case. I can see the point for having a longer RGB splitter, but I do think Cooler Master, you now need to bring out a much shorter one. I would kind of say 15 centimeters at the absolute maximum, because you do need to think that all of your fan headers are going to be heading towards the motherboard one way or another anyway. The other thing that I would say is just to let you know, if you do connect them up via PWM, you can easily get a PWM splitter if you're going to be running multiple versions of these. And a PWM splitter is exactly the same as the RGB splitter. It's just got one PWM header on female on one end, and then you've got the opposite ones on the other end. So it's all fairly simple. You can pick those up on Amazon. I get mine from Aquatuning. Aquatuning do two headers, so one at one end, two at the other, three. I think they do a 4 one, and they definitely do a 6 one as well. If you're worried about fan draw on the 6 one, for argument's sake, you can use the high amp header on the motherboards. But to be honest with you, if you're not going to be running your fans at 12 volts, so if you're not going to be running them at full speed and you're going to keep things quiet, I probably wouldn't worry too much anyway. I've never been able to overload a fan header yet. And let's face it, when I do reviews and stuff, I do everything quite quick, and I do use PWM splitters a lot. If you're going to be running an external fan controller, it's not going to matter. Just remember what I said to you though, it's got to be PWM if you don't want them to dim, because if you dim them down, you can see that the lights dim then, but that's because I'm using the splitter at the back, the little magic box. That's DC 3 pins. So the 3-pin ones, they will dim, the PWM ones won't. You just need to make sure that if you're having issues with PWM, it's just something in the BIOS. The fans themselves, I absolutely love them. Now they've got several different ones, so you can get air balance, you can get air pressure, and you can get, there's another one, airflow I think it was called. There's a load of different ones. They do them in 2 different sizes. They've kind of covered all the bases with these. So if you're looking for an RGB rig, then to be fair, I think they are worthy of the OC3D Extreme Aesthetics Award. Yes, I did edit and change that. It's exactly the same for what I would say about the G-Skill. I said it in the main bulk of the video, but the G-Skill Trident Z RGB, I've had these for a while. I do feel a little bit bad about it, but they absolutely are the best implementation of RGB, both aesthetically and what you can do with them on the planet at the moment. There are a couple of other ones, and I have tested them, and they do look nice, but they're not a patch on these. They've got different zones on them, so that if you want them static colours, you could set them up red, white and blue, or you can set them up as you've seen with the rainbow, where they can change colours with the motherboard, and it all kind of trails and follows. They look brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So as far as, like I've said, anyway, extreme aesthetics for that. Then when we get to the kind of like the amount of Asus Aura stuff that we've got at the moment, this is obviously the Claymore. The Claymore motherboard, absolute bonkers mental amount of money. It's a £200 keyboard. But once you've gone to this kind of extent of having everything Asus RGB, especially once you've got your graphics card, and it's not difficult to have a mouse because you've got the Gladius 2 there. But I've also got, and I'm just looking for it because I keep hiding stuff, You've also got, if you want a slightly bigger mouse and you want it wireless, although you can have this wired, all wireless, you've got the Spartha. And it's got a lovely stand. Anyway, all of these all sync up with the keyboard, with your graphics card, with everything. So the Gladius 2, I've actually been using this for a little bit, and I like this because it's smaller than the Spartha, but you've also got those funky lights around the bottom, although they're not on there at the moment, just for sod's law. You've got the funky lights at the bottom, you've got the little one at the top. It gives you a nice kind of underglow as well, which I kind of like, and I would give that the gamer's choice. But then when we talk about the infamous, absolute infamous Claymore, we waited what feels like far too long for it. Now, if you've not seen a Claymore review, it's got the Aztec pattern all across the metal. You've got all the keys lit. It's fully mechanical. You've got the lovely ROG logo at the front. But they remove you of your left kidney for the privilege, so it's £200. Now, our Enthusiast Award is basically one of those ones where it's like you can't necessarily explain why you want it, it's just something that you must have. So you don't think about price, it's just about want. And if you're an Asus fanboy, and to be honest with you, you probably would need to be, but you'd need to be once you've got all of this as well, then it's a bit of a no-brainer. So I would give the Claymore the Enthusiast Award as well. So you can see I've built this rig, tried to nail loads of reviews all into one, but I think the main event was the fact that at the end of the day we built ourselves, as far as I'm concerned, a cracking looking Ryzen RGB gaming rig. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about the case. Let me know your thoughts about the control, even if you want to talk about the Asus software. But discussions now, we're going to try and push you to the OC3D forum so that you can come and actually have a discussion with us and me as well, because it's getting quite difficult with all the disjointed conversations in the YouTube comments. If you'd like to come and discuss with me and all the other forum members on the OC3D forums, then I'm going to put a link underneath for you all so that you can head there. But let me know what you think. It's going to be a shame because at the end of the day I actually still need to do some other work with that crosshair, so I've now got to take this rig apart. We should have a ceremony. Anyway, this has been Tiny Tom Logan. Let me know your thoughts, I'd love to hear, but for now at least, this is me gone. Get a ding though. Ding!